Okay, so printing. We're going to be using a particular ink, Advanced on rubber-based ink, and it's the only ink that works with the waterless process, or this type of ink. And to open it, we're going to use a push knife, and we're going to use the edge of it and put it between the body of the can and the lid, and kind of holding it all firmly together, twist it up the way in between that little gap. And it should just pop open. So then you want to, the proper way of taking ink out of any tin in the print workshops is to be using the flat end of the push knife and taking a thin layer off the top. You're not digging into it, and you leave a nice flat surface. So once you've got your ink out, you want to give it a work through with your push knife. It's getting you and the ink warmed up, even on a sunny day in Dundee. So just doing that, so you're making sure there's no lumps or hair or anything unusual. You just want to get a nice consistent ink. Then we're going to take a dollop of it on top of the push knife and putting it nice and vertically, pushing down and drawing out a couple of beads of ink. They call it like a bead of ink. So it's a nice sort of thin layer with a couple of beads that are pushed out around the edge of the push knife. Because in lithography you're using thin layers of ink to build up the image, and if you have it too thick on the roller, it'll not work very well. And the roller, this three-part roller, and you want to be able to hold it correctly by putting your hands on the top of it rather than holding the handles like a motorbike. And you want to roll the ink out and move the roller about, and you're wanting to judge how much you've put down. So I'm actually thinking I've got too much here, so I'm just taking some of it back, taking it away, and then I'm going to roll it out again. And I'm already happier with the thin layer of ink that I'm getting a nice consistent roll off of. So that's all done on the inking slab, and this part of the table has been siliconed quite heavily, and it's going to stop the plate from skidding about, and it's also going to reject the ink from the roller, so it's easier to clean up. So if you're holding the roller and you're pushing it across at a nice sort of brisk rate, then you shouldn't be rolling ink onto the slab. It'll be getting snapped up by the roller. So once I'm happy with that, I'm thinking, yep, the ink is a good layer of thinness. I'm going to just test the plate. So I just want to test and make sure that the silicon layer that I put on earlier is working, and it is. So it's going to be successful inking, I thinking. So you want to get the plate and position it nice and sort of square on the siliconed area, and using some tissue paper and some acetone, which is in this empty bottle, a nice clean empty bottle, with this dirty old one I've got some acetone in. So I'm going to take a few sheets of tissue paper and just wet it up. I'll just change the position of the camera. You want to get that folded piece of tissue paper nice and wet with acetone, so you should start to feel it even come through to your fingers. And then you want to use the acetone filled tissue to remove the drawing material. So in this case it's toner, which does require acetone to clean it out. You would also use this for a toner transfer, or if you've drawn with permanent markers. If you'd only used watercolour pencils or a water-soluble drawing material, then you could just use warm water, but often we're using toner-based products as well, so we need to use some acetone. So I've got the cloth and the tissue paper, and I just turned it inside out to find the cleaner part of it, and that's good. You can use a small amount of tissue paper to save the planet one tissue at a time. And so you get a lot of use out of the 2 or 3 sheets of tissue toilet paper. And I'm just working slowly, letting the acetone do all the work. It's not like I'm scrubbing at the plate. So you just want to make sure that the acetone's there and it's doing its solvent best. And you can find clean parts of that tissue paper and a little bit more acetone and finish your way across the plate. The toner is the most sort of acetone intensive need because it's a plastic, but there's plenty of good ventilation and there's no open flames, so we're using a relatively safe material which you want to use within the guidelines. So I'm just getting another bit of tissue and a little bit more acetone, and just give the plate a final clean over, get rid of any old little bits of silicone that have rolled off the image area, and kind of flick them away. I want to be thorough with this part of the process because it's really important that you get ink on the plate the right way. So now it's cleaned out, I'm going to hold the roller, and starting off the plate, I want to roll right across and off and back. And you want to do this quite briskly, and you're putting a certain amount of pressure on the roller as you go across, and you should see this happening where the ink is replaced where the drawing material was. And I'm starting to get all that good detail. And I'm also working out the right amount of ink, so I'm getting a little bit more on the roller, just re-rolling it through the ink, and I was just aware that I could fill the image with a little bit more ink and get a nice juicy sort of print from it. So that's how you ink the plate, and you would ink maybe several so that you could proof them, proof the prints, proof the plates. So this is the press, this is the drive handle, and this is the press bed, timpan that comes down. Put a stone down so we can put the plate on top of that as a plate backer, and it all pulls together. You disengage the drive, you pull the press bed in, and you pull a lever down which is out of shot, but there's a lever that puts the pressure on the scraper bar, which is the lower part of the press there behind the timpan. So anyway, I'm going to put my plate, a plate on that I've just inked, and I've got some paper on the end of the press. It's some nice glossy paper that we've got a bunch of. We've got donated by graphics department with Gary Gowns. And putting the plate and the paper on the plate, and I'm going to get another bit of newsprint because I want to stop the ink from the outside of the plate getting onto the timpan. So that kind of keep it nice and clean. So already I've prepared all this paper before, which is important. So the timpan goes on top and it's been greased, so it's nice and slippery. Drive gets disengaged. The press bed gets positioned. So the end of the stone, or the edge of the stone, is just beyond the scraper bar. The scraper bar, which I've set the pressure for, is going to come down. You can't see it, but there you go. Come down and with the right nice pressure, squeeze the paper to the plate. I'm just driving it through nice and evenly, so you've got no judders or whatever. And disengage the bed, raise the pressure on it, pulling the press bed out. I can lock it off again by re-engaging that handle, and lift the tin pan in the newsprint, which I'll probably recycle. There's a pile of old newsprint that gets recycled. And there's the first print, or the first proof, from the toner transfer plate. So that's the first one, and it's pretty good. I like it already. I'll probably think about printing it in colour with the other 3 plates. So anyway, that goes into the print rack, and should have the print rack emptied and enough space for all the prints you're going to accumulate. So then, once you've inked and printed the plate, you can put the plate back onto the siliconed inking area, and the inking slab, and refresh the roller, and that's it. Just re-roll the ink over it. So the ink that was taken away from the print, you're replacing with ink from the roller. And you can see there's no ink getting left on the silicon slab, so there's no need for solvents on that area. So, printing with colour is the world of print, and you want to use some, in this case, some transparent white, which is the ink without the colour, any pigment. And I'm going to use this as a transparent base or an extender, but certainly to get a transparency from the coloured inks, which are really powerful. They're very versatile inks that can go from very saturated to really thin washes of very light colour. So a lot of subtlety to be had. I'm putting out a little bit of purple, and there's some orange that I already mixed up. So I'm just taking a tiny bit of that purple that I took out of the tin and mixing it through the transparent white, which is just going to give a lot of luminosity to the colour. You always add a little bit of colour to the transparency rather than adding transparency to the colour, because you can control it and keep your quantities down. So I'm working that right through, so it's very even and well mixed. Just give the orange. I'm just going to pull out a bead or 2 of ink with the push knife, and using a different roller. I'm using a brayer. So you can use brayers and the 3-part roller with the waterless litho. So I want to get a thin but unctuous layer on the roller, nice and evenly rolled out. This roller's got little legs that you can stand it on when you're not inking or leaving it to rest. And so we've got another. I'm just going to roll out the other colour, so you can see that there's transparency to the colours, and when you overprint one with the other, then you'll get a third colour or tone. So that's exciting. You can print twice and get 3 colours. So that's not printing 3 times. So I'm going to, I proofed the plates in black, but I'm just going to, now at this point, now that the ink is ready and rolled out, I'm going to take away the black with, again, tissue paper and a bit of acetone, and just wipe it gently, let the acetone do all the work. And once you've done that, flip the tissue over or find the cleaner part of it, give it a final wipe, so it should be nice and clean. And move everything away. You should have the whole area should be clear, so you're not going to trap things in the roller. Anyway, nice open space, and so I'm going to quickly roll the roller right across the plate from one side off it to the other side off it. And at this point I was thinking about rolling the other half in orange, but I stuck to my gun and kept on going with the purple. So I'm going to get a bit more on the roller because it still looks a bit peely-wally, and give it a more consistent look. The sort of richness there, and I can see it's inking up really nicely. And at the end of it, once I've got my plate inked, I can also use the roller, see there you go, to lift up the bits of ink that are left over. So you can leave the area nice and clean for when you perhaps use your other colour, or the other person. There might be at some point another person on the other, using the other end of the area, so you can share it. But if you're working on your own, then it gives you the opportunity to lay down some colours and keep yourself cleaned up while you're going. So the orange is not inking up so quickly. I just need a little bit more on the roller, I think. It should ink up pretty well the first time round. Obviously this is just showing the toner drawing plate, but I'll ink up the others as well. So I can see it's really kind of looking fuller, and I'm getting loads of stuff I wasn't expecting. Some stuff that seemed to not turn out, but there you go, that's a drawing for you. Cleaned it all up. And so the process of printing is just the same. You're going to put the plate on the plate backer or the stone and lay in your printing paper and put your newsprint across and pull the timpan down, grease the timpan, and then disengage the drive, pull in the press bed, get it into position, pull that, whoops, went the wrong way, dope. Put the scraper bar on the stone and turn it through, nice even pressure. Get to the end, just before the end of the press backer, you stop and let off the pressure, and there you go, you're printing in colour, or I am. That tissue's getting tracing newsprint is getting recycled, so there's a first printing in the colour. So this is a nice way of working if you want to pull a bunch of variations of prints and ideas that you can just jam together. It's a great way of producing other things like zines if you want a relatively small number, or comics, or just anything you can think of actually in that way. So you print away, and quite quickly, you're set up. You've got your ink all mixed up and ready to roll, and you can move through ideas or just experiments really quickly. And it's important you've got your paper prepared, cut to size, whatever, and you've got a session that you can just enjoy the printing. And of course you could addition a nice number of prints. Lots of things to experiment with. So there we go, the 3 colours. So pretty straightforward. I did this in the space of a couple of hours, and I just did it for the video, but within a couple of hours you can really sort of fill up a print rack with ideas, and good luck. It's great fun. Yeah, so the last part that you've got to watch is about cleaning up the area, cleaning up the roller.